Annyeonghaseyo. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the IELTS reading multiple choice question. And this is one question type that so many people think is difficult. People read the questions and they can't make sense of it. You look at the question and you feel, where exactly am I supposed to find the answer in the passage? Now, in this session, we're going to look at how to answer multiple choice questions in the IELTS reading test, whether you're taking the academic model or the general training model. Okay, my name is Adenike Babalola and I have been training IELTS test takers since 2017. I have taken the exam 3 times and scored between band 8 and 8.5 in the 3 exams. So this was the first one I took in 2017 when I was hoping to go for my master's in the UK, but I did not go. This is the second one I took in 2021 when I started online, and that was an 8.5, and this is the third one I took in South Korea. So if you are watching me in South Korea, good for you. It means that you're not alone. Now we're going to use the Cambridge books. We're going to use these practice books. We're going to go over 3 questions for the general training, for the academic and the general training. I am a homeschool mom, so that's why you have all this in the background, but hopefully we can focus on what we have to do and then you'll get the results that you need. One thing I need you to understand is the IELTS reading test is not difficult. It's just something that requires you to know the strategies expected of you when you go over passages, and then you make sure that you use them correctly when you answer questions. I'm going to show you what the multiple choice question looks like so that when you practice on your own, you would know how to answer them. Okay, so we're going to go over these 3 questions. This is test 4 in the academic book 18, and this you have questions 14, 15 and 16. And for the general training book, we're using the same book 18, and we're going to answer questions in test 1. Okay, you have 38, 39 and 40. Now, let me answer the first question that many people have when it comes to the reading test as far as the general training module and the academic modules are concerned. What is the difference between both tests? What you find is there are 3 sections for each of them. You have the section 1, section 2 and section 3. In the general training tests, for section 1, you would have 2 passages. Section 2, you have 2 passages. And section 3, you would have 1 long passage. It is in this long passage that you are likely to find multiple choice questions. For example, in this case, you have these questions in questions as 38, 39 and 40. We're going to practice these questions together now. I'm going to give you the steps that you need to know so that when you practice this on your own as you prepare for your exam, or even when you see this question type in your exam, you will know exactly what to do and you will pick your answers confidently. Now, for the academic module, you can find multiple choice questions in section 1 or section 2 or section 3. In your own case, you don't have 5 passages. What you have is 1 passage in section 1, 1 passage in section 2, and 1 passage in section 3. So for academic, it is just a total of 3 passages. And in this case, we have the multiple choice question in section 2. Okay, you have questions 14, 15, and 16 as multiple choice questions. Now, the first thing you need to note is people ask this question: should you be scanning for keywords or should you read the entire passage? You need to understand that for the reading test, you have just 60 minutes. 40 questions in 60 minutes. Now, it depends on your ability to read fast and manage time and all of that. But the truth is, in reality, 60 minutes, that's 1 hour, is not enough to answer 40 questions conveniently in a way that you are sure that all your answers are correct. So you are racing against time and you're still trying to ensure that every answer that you pick is correct, especially if you're going for a band 9. Okay, this is the second result that I had a band, I had a band 9 in 2021. I think this time it was a band 8. The previous one was an 8.5. So irrespective of the results that you are aiming for, your goal is to ensure that you can answer every single kind of question in the reading test. Now let's get started. The first step that you need to take note of when you answer the reading question, the multiple choice question, is read the questions first. You should always ensure that the first thing you do is read the questions. Now, some people make the mistake of going to the passage and trying to read everything, but look at this. You have 2 full pages of text. You don't have the time to read all of this. How do you maximize time so that you find your answers quickly and then you can pick, you go through everything, you move on to the next questions without any problem? In this case, we have 3 questions. I'm going to read them out to you and I'm going to make sure that they are visible to you as well. Now, this is passage 2 in the academic book, test 4, and the instruction for multiple choice is usually choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. Okay, so you have choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. Write the correct letter in boxes 14 to 16 on your answer sheet. Okay, so this is what the answer sheet looks like. You always have a sample at the back of your books. Okay, so this is what your listening answer sheet would look like. This is what the reading would look like. In this case, your questions are 14, 15, 16. So it means that when you're writing your answers, you write them here where you have 14, 15, and 16. Now, your goal is to read the question and understand what the question requires you to do. In this case, question 14 says, what can we learn from the first passage? From the first paragraph, rather. What can we learn from the first paragraph? Now, when you see first paragraph, it means that your mind knows that you'll be going to the very first paragraph in the passage. But that is not all. You need to find out what 15 and 16 also require you to do. Now, 15 says the second paragraph describes how schools encourage students to do what? That's what you're looking for. So we're going to the second paragraph for question 15. It means that you would go here to find your answer. Let's look at number 16. Number 16 says, in the third paragraph, the writer suggests that students with a fixed mindset something. So for the third question, which is question 16, in this context, you're going to this third paragraph. So you see that the questions themselves have made it easy for you to identify where you'll be going to in the passage. Now, there are times when the question is not specific about the location of the answer. Let me say that in 3 to 4 passages where you have questions on multiple choice questions, you would find that in 3 or 4 of these instances, there will be a mention of the paragraph you're meant to go to. Are you looking at the first paragraph or the second one or the third one, the 5th one or the 6th one? In this case, we are looking at paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Those 3 paragraphs are the locations of your answer. That should give you some peace of mind because it means that you're not going to be scanning through the entire paragraphs. You know where to go to find your answer. But that's just the first step. The second step is to make sure that you truly understand what the question requires you to do. What are you expected to look for when you go to those paragraphs in the passage? That's what you care about. It's not just about knowing where to go to. It's about knowing what you're looking for, right? Now, this question, the first one we read, 14, says, what can we learn from the first paragraph? Now, I want you to internalize that statement. What can I learn from the first paragraph? What does the first paragraph say to me? What did the writer of the first paragraph say? What did the writer say in the first paragraph? What can we learn? If you are learning something, it means that you are pulling out information. You're trying to understand something. That's what the first question wants you to look for. So it means that the only way you can truly understand that is if you go back to paragraph 1 and read everything. In this case, let me just say that this multiple choice question looks like matching headings where you have to read the entire. Let me see if I can identify, if I can spot matching headings very quickly. Let me just scan through and see if I can show you. Aha. Now this is matching headings, okay, where you have to provide the answers for these paragraphs based on what has been provided in the box. Now, multiple choice is the question that comes close to matching headings because you are expected in this case to read very quickly the paragraph and extract the information that you need. So So unlike other questions like table completion, sentence completion, note completion, and the rest of them, flowchart, where you can easily read a sentence and go back to the passage and find the word that is missing, whether it is one word or two words. For multiple choice, especially when it is asked like this, you need to read the paragraph to understand what it is saying. But you cannot stop there. I have only read for 14. Let me read you what you have in 15 and 16 so that you can understand it. Because if you understand what the question is asking you to do, when you go back to the passage, you would identify that thing very quickly, because there's another roadblock when you get to the options. We have 4 options, A, B, C, D. The problem with this is that many times the options are similar. And when they are not similar, you find that they will combine a bit of the truth and a bit of error. So you have something from the passage and something the passage did not say combined into options, so that to you, an option will look like the answer. But if you look closely, if you understand the question well enough, you will know that that is not what you need. Now, question 15 says, the second paragraph describes how schools encourage students to do something. It means that when you go to the second paragraph, what you're asking yourself is, what do schools encourage students to do? And what is another word for encourage? Let me bring in the point about paraphrasing. You need to paraphrase. You see that for learn from, in question 14, I said you're pulling information from something. What can you discover? What can you find out? What do you understand? That's what you have in question 14. In the case of 15, it says schools encourage students to do something. When you say encourage, what is another word for encourage? Please make sure you type another word, a synonym for encourage. Please put that in the comment section. Now, the idea is, if you can paraphrase the question using synonyms or expressions that mean similar things, you will know how to find your answers fast, because you're racing against time. You need to pick your answers quickly, but you also want to make sure that you are not gambling. You want to be confident about the answers that you choose. In this case, schools want students to do something. They motivate them, they inspire them, they propel them, they talk them into. You see what I'm doing? I'm trying my best to replace the word encourage, because in as much as the question has, it has made the sentence, the information crisp, when you get to the passage, it's going to be broken down. You'll see like a proper explanation of what the question has given you. Now, for number 15, it means that when you go to the paragraph 2, you are looking for what schools encourage their students to do. But let's not stop there. Let's go to number 16 and understand the question. You see what we are doing? We paraphrase the question so that we can understand it. Now, question 16 says, in the third paragraph, the writer suggests that students with a fixed mindset do something. Fixed mindset. In fact, if you are practicing with your book, if you have this Cambridge book and you're practicing with it, make sure you underline these words that I have talked about. I have talked about learn from. I've talked about encourage. Underline them. Using your pencil on your paper while you are practicing allows you to be present with what you're doing. I've had people tell me that their mind wanders off when they are doing the listening test, for example, or even the reading, when they are not able to concentrate fully. And I say, make sure you are using your pencil on the paper. Make sure you are involving yourself in what you're doing. It's not enough to practice on the computer. Yes, it's fair enough, even if you're preparing for the computer test, but you want to make your preparation process easy. You want to see results as you prepare. Now for question 16, you have in the third paragraph, the writer suggests. When you suggest something, it means that you are making that thing obvious. You are providing something. You are presenting an angle, okay? That students with a fixed mindset, when you say a mindset is fixed, it means that they are thinking in only one particular way. They are not seeing the second side. And that's mindset. Mindset is about what you think, what you believe. Okay, do you understand this? In paragraph 1, we're interested in what do you learn? What do we learn from? In paragraph 2, we're interested in No, this is paragraph 2, what the schools encourage students to do. Now in paragraph 3, you're interested in what the writer suggests about students with fixed mindsets. If you can spend time, now of course in exam conditions, you're not going to take as much time as I'm taking to talk, because this explanation will be happening in your mind. Okay, but because I'm explaining it to you, I'm taking my time to break it down so that when you do it independently, you are confident of what you're doing. Okay, it's not enough to know how to just find your answers. You want to be sure, 100% sure that you're doing the right thing. Now that you have understood, so it means that you can understand the question in 1 to 2 minutes, right? Because you have other questions to answer. The next most important thing to do is to go through the options. Read through options A to D for each of them. Do you know that we have not gone to the passage yet? We have not gone to read the passage yet. What we are dedicating our time to is reading each of them. We want to understand the question and then understand the options, so that when you understand them and you put them in your mind, by the time you go to the passage, you will see what you're looking for fast. Your eyes will spot the answer immediately. Your mind will comprehend it fast, quickly. Now, I'm going to read the options to you very quickly so that we can put them in our minds as we go back to the paragraph, to the passage, okay? Now, the first option A says, where the notion of innate intelligence first began. Remember that number 1 says, this first paragraph, when we go there, we're interested in what do we learn? So you ask yourself, am I going to learn about where the notion means idea. Am I going to learn where the idea of innate intelligence, when you say something is innate, it means it is inborn intelligence. Your intelligence you came with your intelligence. You were born intelligent. Do you see what I'm doing? I am explaining the option to myself. When you explain the options to yourself in advance, when you go to the passage, by the time you begin to see things that look like it, you will know if it is what you should pick or if it is something you should avoid. And I call that the elimination method. If you have taken the time to read through the options, when you begin to read the paragraph and you see that, this option I read does not look like what I should choose, you can come back here and cancel it. Just put the X so that you know that you have gotten rid of that option. If it means that, you have one option less, it means that out of 4, you have 3. By the time you eliminate another one, you have 2. You will know which one is your answer. You will choose it easily and confidently. Now, option A says, are we going to find out where innate intelligence began? Where it first began, where it first started? Where the idea came from originally? That's what A is interested in. Now, B says, when ideas about the nature of intelligence began to shift. Are we going to learn how people think about intelligence began to shift? It means that they moved from seeing it in one way to another way. Is that what we're going to find out? Option C says, how scientists have responded to changing views of intelligence. It means that they're talking about, are we going to learn that different scientists approached the different views of intelligence in different ways? Are we going to discover what scientists did, how they reacted? But not necessarily reacted, because the question said responded. So what was their approach? What was their reception to the changing views to, okay, intelligence was seen like this, then it was seen like that next. Now, option D says, why thinkers turned away from the idea of intelligence being fixed. Are we going to find out why some people stopped looking at the idea of intelligence is this way and only this way? That's what you have for the 4 options. Now you apply the same principle to the other 2. For the second paragraph, it says schools encourage students to do something. What do schools encourage them to do? Is it to identify their personal ambitions? It means like they should discover what they want to be when they get older or as they grow up. Is it that they will help each other to realize their goals? Okay, this student will help the other student, this other student will help the other student. Is that what we're going to find out? Option C says, have confidence in their potential to succeed. Is it that schools encourage students to say, yes, you can do it. Believe in yourself. You can succeed. Is that what we're going to find out? Option D says, concentrate on where their particular strengths lie. Okay, do schools encourage them to focus on their strength? This is what you can do. Dwell on it. Is that what we're going to find out? Let's go to number 16 so that when we go to those paragraphs, you would know the answer and you would choose them. Now for 16, they talked about the writer suggesting something about students with fixed mindset. What did the writer suggest? Did he suggest that they tend to be less competitive? It means that they don't like competition. They just settle for less or something like that. Is that what we're going to find out? Number B, the second one, option B, is it that they generally have a low sense of self-esteem? It means that they don't see themselves as significant. They just have this very small mind, small perception of themselves. Is that what we're going to find out? Let's check C. Option C says, will only work hard if they are given constant encouragement. It means that if you encourage them consistently, they will push themselves. Is that what the writer said about students with a fixed mindset? And finally, D says, are they afraid? Is it that they're afraid to push themselves beyond what they see as their limitation? It means that they don't want to go beyond a particular point because they feel this is like my safety zone, my comfort zone. They don't like to do things that would take them outside that zone because to make them feel unsafe. Is that what we're going to find out? I have taken the time to explain the questions and the options to you so that when you are practicing on your own, when you flip through your pages and you come to multiple choice, you won't be anxious, you won't be panicky because you know what to do. You know that you need to look at the question, understand what it's asking you to do. You look at the options very quickly. In fact, I would recommend something. When you're practicing multiple choice questions for the first time, don't turn on the clock on your phone. Don't turn on their timer. Practice outside exam mode. Don't practice with your timer on for the first time. Why? You want to put these strategies to practice. You want to make sure that you understand what you are doing so that when you can confidently say, I know how to answer this question, you can now take your phone, turn on the stopwatch or the timer, put it beside you and say, okay, I want to answer this question, or maybe the entire 1 to 40. Your confidence level needs to be high when you answer IELTS questions. I know that some people say that it's an English exam, you can freestyle, you don't need this, you don't need that. But the truth is, there are tricks to these things. I don't like to call them tricks, but because it makes it look like there's something funny about it. There is a method, there is a system, there are strategies. And if you know how examiners have set these things, if it's like saying that you have the key to a door and you can open it, your strategy is the key. So that if you want a band 9, you want your 40 over 40, you get it. Now we are going to go to the passage and we are going to read the paragraphs. I'm going to read them out loud to you. If you have the books, you can read them to yourself, but I'm going to, read them out loud. I'll try to be as slow as possible so that you understand. So the first one, 14, we want to know what we're going to learn about the first paragraph. I'll read that to you. Over the past century, a powerful idea has taken root in the educational landscape. The concept of intelligence as something innate has been supplanted by the idea that intelligence is not fixed. And with the right training, we can be authors of our own cognitive capabilities. Psychologist Alfred Binet, the developer of the first intelligence tests, was one of many 19th century scientists who held that earlier view and sought to quantify cognitive ability. Then, in the early 20th century, progressive thinkers revolted against the notion that inherent ability is destiny. Instead, educators such as John Dewey argued that every child's intelligence could be developed given the right environment. I will underline some things and I will tell you why. I have underlined something innate. Intelligence as something innate has been supplanted by the idea that intelligence is not fixed. That's the first thing I underlined. Then I underlined 19th century scientists, and then I'm going to underline 20th century, the early 20th century. Now remember that the question said, what can we learn? Option A was, is it where this idea first began? Is it when the notion of the nature of intelligence began to shift? Is it when how scientists responded to changing views? Or is it why thinkers turned away from the idea of intelligence being fixed? If you look at what we just read, it says that very second sentence said, the concept of intelligence as something innate has been supplanted. It reminds me of Cain and Abel. Okay, where you have Cain being unhappy with the sacrifice of Abel. But that's just something that clicked in my mind. You find somebody coming over somebody. Okay, Cain killed Abel. That's what we remember. The point is, somebody is over. In that case, somebody was over somebody. Now, supplanted means something replaces something. It's like this result supplanting this result. My 2024 result comes over my 2021 results. So it means that the idea of intelligence as innate, something we're born with, was replaced by the fact that intelligence is not fixed. And as if you followed, you find that they talked about the age in the 19th century. Somebody said this. In the 20th century, somebody said this. So you find that they shifted. Something was replaced. The idea of intelligence as innate was replaced by the fact that intelligence is not fixed. And the mention of these two psychologists, you find that they sought to look at the developer of the first intelligence test. So somebody did something in the 19th century, and then you find somebody else doing something in the early 20th century. In short, what you have is there is a shift. There was a movement from one idea of intelligence as inborn to the fact that intelligence can be developed. Now, which option looked like that? Is it option A, where the notion of innate intelligence first began? No. We don't have the origin. We were not told the origin. Okay? Yes, they say that Alfred Binet, he held the earlier view and sought to quantify this. But they said then in the early 20th century, progressive thinkers revolted. So you find that somebody believed one thing, but others came against it. They went against it. So you find that there was a movement from the first one to the second one. We don't have when it began. We only know that the psychologist Alfred talked about it. It supported intelligence as innate. Now, option B says when ideas about the nature of intelligence began to shift. Do you know why I will go with this option? It starts with the word when. Do you see that we had the mention of 19th century, 20th century? It's talking about time. And when you say when talks about time. Where talks about the place. Option A talks about where. Option B talks about when. Option C talks about how scientists responded. That's not what we have. Because if it was about that, you would have been seeing the mention of this psychologist, scientists mentioned this and all of that. Okay? And then option D says why. Did it talk about a reason? No. There was no reason involved. You only find that at a particular time, this was what people believed in, and then it shifted and shifted. It became something else. Your answer for number 14 is, did you get it? Option B. Your answer is B. Because merely looking at the mention of the dates and then this keyword supplanted, that word helped us to find our answer. If you're doing this on your own, you don't need so much analysis to know that your answer for this is B. Did you get it? Now I'm going to breeze through questions 15 and 16 because I have shown you the strategies. 15 said the second paragraph describes how schools encourage students to do what? Is it identify personal ambitions to help each other realize their goals, have confidence to believe they can succeed in their potential to succeed, or concentrate on where their strengths lie? I'm going to read paragraph B to you. Growth mindset theory is a relatively new and extremely popular version of this idea. In many schools today, you will see hallways covered in motivational posters and hear speeches on the mindset of great sporting heroes who simply believed their way to the top. A major focus of the growth mindset in schools is coaxing students, that word, coaxing students away from seeing failure as an indication of their ability and towards seeing it as a chance to improve that ability. As educationalist Jeff Howard noted several decades ago, smart is not something that you are. Smart is something that you can get. Smart is not something that you just are. Smart is something that you can get. Did you hear the word coax? C-O-A-X. Okay, that's the word you have here. C-O-A-X. When you coax somebody, it means that you are encouraging them, you are pushing them, you are convincing them, you are persuading them. That was the word that they used here, encourage. So schools have posters on the wall, they have speeches that encourage students. What are they coaxing them to do? It says they coaxing students away from seeing failure as an indication of their ability and towards seeing it as a chance to improve that ability. In short, what they are doing here is, if the sporting heroes believed their way, it means that they want them to believe in themselves. And which option looked like that? Our answer is option. Can you get it? Option C. Have confidence in their potential to succeed. It's not about personal ambitions, identify their personal ambitions. That's not what they said. And it's not about helping each other to realize their goals. That's not what we read. And it's not about D, concentrate on where their particular strengths lie. No. It says that they should not see failure as something bad, but as a chance to improve. It means that if they use the stories of sporting heroes who simply believed their way to the top, it means that they want students to believe in themselves. And it means that they want them to have confidence in their potential to succeed. They have the ability, they have the chances of being successful. Did you get that answer quickly? Let's look at number 16. In the third paragraph, what does the writer suggest about students with a fixed mindset? Is it that they are less competitive? They have a low self-esteem? Is it that they would work hard only if you encourage them constantly? Or that they are afraid to push themselves beyond what they see as their limitations? I'm going to read paragraph B. The third paragraph to you. It's quite lengthy, but I'll read it to you. The idea of the growth mindset is based on the work of psychologist Carol Dweck in California in the 1990s. In one key experiment, Dweck divided a group of 10 to 12-year-olds into two groups. All were told that they had achieved a high score on a test, but the first group were praised for their intelligence in achieving this, while the others were praised for their efforts. The second group, those who had been instilled with a growth mindset, were subsequently far more likely to put effort into future tasks. Meanwhile, the former took on only those tasks, that would not risk their sense of worth. This group had inferred that success or failure is due to innate ability, and this fixed mindset had led them to fear of failure and lack of effort. Praising ability actually made the students perform worse, while praising effort emphasized that change was possible. This looks like everything in the option. There's a mention of self-worth, which sense of worth, which is similar to self-esteem. But don't make that mistake. Don't say because you saw the sense of worth, you're going to choose generally have a low sense of self-esteem. Don't choose that. They are saying different things. If you misunderstand that sentence, you will choose the wrong answer. Let me show you. What did it say? What did the writer suggest about them? This is what it said. It said, the paragraph said that some were praised on their innate ability, while some, one group was praised for being intelligent. The other group was praised for putting in effort. Now, for those who were praised for their intelligence, you see this. Let me read it to you. The former, that's the first group, they took on only the task that would not risk their sense of self. It means that they did only things that they knew they could do. Anything that required them to try something they could not do, they avoided them. Now, which option looks like that? Staying within their ability. You have option D. Are afraid to push themselves beyond what they see as their limitations. They don't want to risk not being intelligent. They don't want to risk not feeling intelligent. But those who were praised for effort, they put the effort and they saw results. I'm going to show you why options A, B, C are not the answers. Option A says, tend to be less competitive. Did you see anything like that? No, there wasn't a mention of competition. You just add that option, group A were praised for intelligence, while group B were praised for ability. Now, option B says, generally have a low sense of self-esteem. No, that's not the point. The sentence that mentioned sense of worth only said that they took on only tasks that would not risk their sense of worth. They would not do anything that would make them feel less intelligent. And that's what option D is talking about. They are afraid to push themselves, because that fear was also talked about. They said it led them to the fear of failure and lack of effort. Was this easy for you? I want you to be able to confidently choose your answers. This is option C, and then this is option D. When you choose the correct answers, I want you to be able to tell yourself, I know this is the correct answer because the other options are wrong. They were that's not what we read. That's not what I read. When you are able to choose your answers with all confidence, when you step out of the exam hall, you tell yourself, I know I did well. I got everything. I chose all the right answers. That is your goal when you take the test, because you're not taking the IELTS test just for the sake of, you just want to pass it. For me, the first time I took the exam, it was because I wanted to, have my master's in the UK. Unfortunately, I did not go because of, finances and all of that. But since then, I have committed to helping people to make sure that when you take this exam, you don't need to take 3 exams and, everything is just a disappointment to you. No, I want you to have just one result. Okay? Just one result. When you take this exam, have just one result and you move on with your life. You don't have to have, the first one, you didn't get the result you want. You took another one. It's not the same thing. It's not what you want. You took another one. Remember that you're spending money and spending time. And I know that the exam has recently been, the exam fee has been raised. I want you to tell yourself, I am going to spend this money once. I'm going to get my results once. And if I'm going to study, I'm going right away. If I'm going to work, I'm going right away. If I'm getting my permanent residence, I'm getting it right away. That is the essence of this IELTS. It is not your destination. It is just a means to an end. Let us practice with the general training book, using the same strategy. You see that I have explained the entire system to you. So when we answer this question, I'm not necessarily going to repeat the steps because you now understand it. So whether you are taking the academic module or the general training module, as you're watching this video, you know that it is the same strategy. It's just that, of course, the passages are different, right? Now, this passage is about, remember that the third passage in the general training test is the longest one. Unlike the other ones where you can have just a single page, you see that this is not even a full page. When you get to the final passage, your passage 5, it's going to be lengthy. And in fact, look at the first question. They gave you questions on multiple, matching headings. And then the question that followed is, you have another question, you have summary completion, but there's no box down here. And then you have multiple choice. Now we're going to answer questions 38, 39, and 40. I'm going to read the questions to you. I'm going to underline the things we need to pay attention to. And then I'll read the options and then I will read the paragraphs so that we can find our answer. Question 38 says, in section A, we learned that in the past, people thought white storks something. Now in this case, we just want to know what the passage is about. And this passage is about white storks, okay? Beautiful birds. It's about birds. White storks back in Britain after hundreds of years. So we're going to be reading about birds. The previous one was about education, students and all of that. Let me see. Let me go back. We did test 4, right? Yes, so it was about intelligence, and then the experiment with students. So this was the growth mindset. Now this one is about stocks, kinds of birds. Now it's the first paragraph mentions section A. We learn, you see that learn word again. So what do we learn about what people thought about these birds in the past? The emphasis is on past. What did people think about the birds in the past? Now, is it that they represented the deep snow and cold days of winter? Is it that they had the power to ensure that babies were born safely? Is it that they were a specialty that only the very rich were allowed to eat? Or is it that they might be used to encourage people to get rid of the monarchy? Remember that this is about birds in Britain. I'm going to read you the very paragraph, option A, so that we can answer that question. Then for 39, I will read, we'll find where it is. Because in this case, you don't really have the mention of first paragraph, second paragraph and all. You just have section A. So we know that we will go to paragraph A. Because this particular paragraph, this passage was labeled, you see, A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, and it was labeled mainly because of the matching headings. All right, now I'm going to read you paragraph A. We want to find out, what did people in the past think about white stocks, about this kind of birds? So listen closely. The last definitive record of a pair of white stocks successfully breeding in Britain was in 1416 from a nest of St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. No one knows why storks disappeared from our shores. They often featured on the menus of medieval banquets, so we might quite simply have consumed them all. But there could be a more ominous reason. Storks were migrants arriving after the end of winter, nesting on rooftops and happily associating with humans. And because of this, they have long been a symbol of hope and new life. Yet, their association with rebirth also meant that they became a symbol of rebellion. Shortly after the restoration of King Charles II in 1660, while storks were rare but surviving, Parliament debated putting greater effort into destroying them entirely for fear they might inspire republicanism. Today, fortunately, that notion has disappeared and the stock retains its association with new life, appearing on cards given to celebrate the arrival of a new child, as a bird carrying a baby in a sling held in its beak. Because you are interested in what people thought about white stocks in the past, the sentence that comes up, the words that come after today should never be your answer, because today means the present, current time, while the past, is the past, things before. Can I tell you something? I found this particular passage on the internet. It is in, I think, one of the dailies, I think Guardian or so, I'm not too sure now. This particular passage, this white stocks, in fact, go on Google and type this title. You will find the paper where this passage was taken from. They made a little adjustments. Why did I give you that information? If you spend time reading on the internet, or you read books, or you spend time giving yourself so much, making your mind rich, the thing is that you are improving your ability to understand written information. It will help you. Okay, these are examples of some of my books. Okay, I have my Korean books because of course I want to be able to read Korean. I'm learning Korean. These are my books for Korean and all of that. Now, but these have English text. These have, English books. Now, if you spend time reading books like this, you get to understand how the writer thinks. You get to understand how ideas are formulated, how they are presented, and how to extract what is there for you. Apart from that, you would also know how to write, because when you see how somebody else has written, you can begin to develop your own style of writing, of expressing yourself. So I paused to make the point about the relevance of reading. Whether you are reading online, now I'm not saying that you will come across your reading passage definitely when you are reading online. That's not the point. The point is that you'll be sharpening your ability to read and understand anything, any passage. Okay, now let's go back to this. So what we read here was simply saying that the birds disappeared. They had not seen them for a long time, and it was probably because they ate them, they consumed them. But then there was the fact that the bird was seen as a sign of hope and new life. Nonetheless, they were also seen as a symbol of rebellion, because after King Charles II was restored, the parliament began to think about how they could get rid of all the birds, because they suspected that the birds would trigger, they could, you know, for the fear that they might inspire republicanism. Which option looked like that? If you go back to the options, you find that it might be used to encourage people to get rid of the monarchy. That is what the parliament thought. But how do you know? That's what they thought. But how do you know that your answer is not option A, B, or C? I'm going to tell you what is in option A. Option A said that the birds represented the deep snow and cold days of winter. No, the birds represented hope and new life, and were also a symbol of rebellion. Okay? So what you have here is, even though winter was mentioned, you find that the only thing they said about winter was, let me see if I can find it. There was a mention, they disappeared from our shores and all of that. Yes, storks are migrants arriving at the end of winter. That's what the passage said. But it did not say anything about representing deep snow. It only said that they come at the end of winter. So I want you to be careful. Some options will contain some things that the passage said, but you have to look at those options closely. Is this option saying exactly what the option said, what the passage said? Why is your answer not option B? It says, had the power to ensure that babies were born safely. No. Yes, the passage talked about babies. They put the picture of the bird on the cards that you give when a baby has been born. Okay? Appearing on cards given to celebrate the arrival of a new child. So it is not the bird that triggers the safe delivery of the baby. No. The bird is put on the card that you give to say a baby has been born. Do you see the mix-up there? Be careful so that you don't get misled by some of these options. And why is your answer not option C? It says we're a speciality that only the very rich were allowed to eat. Of course, the passage talked about them eating the birds at banquets, medieval banquets. It was on the menu. But did they say anything about only the rich eating the bird? There was nothing like that. So do you see what is happening here? Sometimes they would combine something that was in the passage and something that the passage did not say, and they'll put them together and they'll give them to you as options. If you, because you saw a word that was in the passage, you now see that an option has something like that, and you now take it as your answer. If it is not the answer, you are wrong. How many marks do you want to lose because you jumped at the wrong answer? So please be patient and make sure you understand before you choose your answer. So our answer for option 38 is D, because in the passage they say that the parliament was afraid that the birds would inspire republicanism. What word looks like inspire here? Encourage people. Encourage and inspire are synonyms. Just as I am encouraging you to master IELTS reading multiple choice questions and go for your exam. Okay, now let's answer number 39. The Sussex Wildlife Trust Committee was unwilling to support the stocks because we are looking for why. Because you're looking for the reason behind something. Why did this committee express unwillingness? Why were they unwilling to support the stocks? When you say somebody is unwilling, what do you mean? The person is hesitant. The person does not want to do something. The person is, holding back, resisting. You see what I'm doing? I'm paraphrasing. That's what you do in your mind. If you're going to spend like 5 minutes on this question type, that's why you do everything very quickly. Understand the question, understand the options, and then you go to the paragraph. In this case, the you notice that the question did not mention first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph? There is nothing like that, but there is a clue. This mention of the name Sussex Wildlife Trust Committee allows you to simply do one thing. Go to the passage and look for where the committee was mentioned. This is a proper noun. The phrase is a proper noun. It's a name of a committee. It has a specific, Sussex is a place. Okay, so you just need to find Sussex Wildlife Trust. Now, what you do is you scan very quickly. Obviously, I can see Sussex in the second paragraph, but it did not say the Wildlife Committee. I'm interested in committee. Another beautiful thing about this is, because matching headings questions come first, it is very likely that you have already gone through the passage. You already know what the passage entails, because matching headings requires you to read in full. If you want to know how to answer matching headings questions, I'll link the video in the description so that you can watch that as well. All right, so in this case, you're interested in why were they unwilling? Why was the committee unwilling? Just look down. Oh wow, see, the very last sentence says, in addition, the committee of the Sussex Wildlife Trust raised doubts. They raised doubts. Raised doubt. What does it mean to raise doubt? You exhibit uncertainty. You trigger uncertainty. You express uncertainty. You are not sure. Okay? They raised doubts about the stork ever having been a British bird. They doubted that this bird was not from Britain. So it's like saying that somebody tells me, I'm not sure you're Nigerian. And I'm like, my name is Adenike Babalola. I'm a Yoruba woman from Kwara. I'm trying to prove to you. That's what this committee did. They doubted the original place of the bird. Okay? They also had concerns that English-bred birds would migrate across the channel and feared that their messiness and closeness to humans would cause a hazard. Rubbish falling down people's chimneys. In short, they doubted the existence of the birds. You already have that. Now go back to the options. Do you remember that one option said something about, option C said it was unsure that they were actually a native species. Do you remember when I paraphrased? I used the word uncertainty. I used the word not sure. Unsure is here. It was unsure that they were actually a native species. Native species means British bird. They were not sure if the bird was from Britain. That's what you have. That's what looks like what you have in the passage. So your answer for this is C. But why is it not A, B, or D? I'm going to tell you. Option A says, it's thought there might not be any safe breeding places locally. Is that what you read? No way. I eliminate that. Don't forget to eliminate. Once you see something that does not look like what you need, cross it out. Especially if you have not found your answer yet. Okay? Why is it not option B? It's worried whether they would survive in Britain long enough. No. The first concern was, were they a British bird? Then it was, it's feared that they would migrate and they would make everywhere messy and all of that. That's what the passage said. Now let's look at option D. It had too many other worthy projects to support. No, they didn't talk about any other projects. The committee wasn't working on any other project. It was just these birds that they were talking about. That's the information that the passage gave us. Do you see what I just did? We saw the answer, but we also saw why the other options are not the answers, or are not the answer at all. When you take the time to understand the question and the options, when you find your answer and you come back to it, you will be so sure. You will beat your chest and say, yes, I know this is the answer. Your goal is to get every question. Of course, if you miss some questions, there's no penalty for that. But excuse me, if you're aiming for a band 9, why not get it? Okay, so this is your stage of preparation. Your goal is to master every strategy that would help you to choose the right answer. Let's answer the final question, question 14, and then we call it a day. Question 40 rather. Now the question says, what has been one effect of stock reintroductions in Europe? It means, what has the bringing back of this bird to Europe led to? Effect is, cause and effect. You do something, it results in something. So the cause here is reintroduction. They are bringing the birds back. They have brought them back. What has been one effect? This is present perfect. It means it is not something that's completely in the past. It means that something has happened during this period of bringing the birds back to Europe. Now you want to ask yourself, what is one effect? What has the reintroduction led to? Led to is an expression that you can use in place of effect. Resulted in. What is a consequence? Okay, so you see that these are expressions you can use when you do the writing test as well. Your writing task. Led to, brought about, resulted in. Now let's go through the options. Option A says, a variety of measures have been taken to create nesting sites. When you say variety, what do you mean? Different things have been done to, that's a variety of measures. It means we have done this thing, we have done this thing, we have done this thing, we have done different things have been taken to create nesting sites. It means that, they've put the birds can have their nest in this location, in this location, in this location, in this location, in different places. That's what option A says. Is that what we find out? Option B says changes have been made to the routes of some major roads. Okay, they've changed some roads. Okay, let's find out. Option B says special shelters have been made to protect the birds in bad weather. Okay, is that what we're going to find out? Finally, option D says some people have strengthened their roofs to support the birds' weight. Okay, we don't know what it is. Let's go and read to find out. Since we don't know where to look, we need to look for where Europe is mentioned. And obviously, it goes a little further. I can see reintroduction project here, but I'm seeing Britain, foundation. I'm seeing all of this. Okay, wildlife park. Yeah, I see across Europe. So this would be a good location to read. All right, so you have across Europe, as stock populations have suffered from the draining of wetlands and disappearance of insect-rich pastures and meadows, their loss has been felt deeply. A few years ago, a tearful old woman in a village in Belarus, let me just put this down, okay? In a village in Belarus showed me the nest on her roof, empty of stalks for the first time in living memory, where stalks have been reintroduced. Look at this. Where stalks have been reintroduced. That's what the question asks us to look for. Where they've been reintroduced. They are greeted with special happiness, and some historical stock festivals have been restored. Okay. The Spanish erect poles for nests along their motorways. Nests along their motorways. And in houses, householders install cartwheels for stocks to build nests on their roofs. During a cold snap in Bulgaria last March, villagers even gave white Turks access to their homes. Everything looks like nests. Okay? It means that the Spanish erect poles for nests, there are cartwheels in some households, and then you have the villagers giving Turks access to their homes. It looks like different things were done to provide nests for the birds. And that looks like option A. A variety of measures have been taken to create nesting sites. Option A. What was our answer for option 39? Our answer was option C. And for 40, the answer is A. It means that different things have been done to make sure that these birds have their nests. Okay? Even though there was a mention of motorways, it was not about the route of the motorways. It was only saying that the nests were placed along, the poles of the nests were placed along the motorways. Option B says that special shelters have been made to protect the birds in bad weather. No, we don't have that information yet. And then option D says some people have strengthened their roofs to support the weight of the birds. No, it's not about the weight of the bird. The only thing that was mentioned was they put cartwheels to build nests on their roofs, okay, for stock. So the birds will build their nests in the cartwheels. It's not about the bird's weight. Do you see how easy it is to answer multiple choice questions in your IELTS reading test? It is that simple. All you need to do is follow the steps that I have shown you. I have told you the steps and I have shown you. Number one, read the questions. Then make sure you understand the question. Read the options. Make sure you understand the question, the options. Then you go to the paragraph, the passage. look for the particular place where you're meant to pick your answers. And as you read, make sure you are able to create a connection between the options and then the passage, so that you don't pick the wrong answer. You can make sure you pick the correct answer quickly and confidently. I hope that this session, this video, helps you to understand that multiple choice questions are not difficult. Whether you are taking the general training test, or you're taking the academic test, it does not have to be difficult. See, out of these three results, this is academic. The one in 2024 is academic. The one in 2021 is general training. The one in 2017 was academic. So I've taken both modules. I know how it is. And I just want you to tell yourself, this exam is just an exam. I will learn the strategies, I will do it right, and I will get the result that I need, so that you can go to the countries that you want to go to. You can have the life that you want, and you can find happiness in whatever you do. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. My name once again is Adenike Babalola. If you have any questions for me, please put them in the description. I will go over them and I will try to answer them. And of course, I will provide the link to other videos for the IELTS reading and IELTS writing, as well as speaking and listening, just to help you to get the results that you need. Pay for this exam once, get your result once, and go to wherever it is that you want, just once. I'll see you again in another video. Stay well. Bye.